Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Wrapping up another weekend of baseball. Let's jump into it in the American League. Toronto ends up taking 2 of 3 from Cleveland after losing the first game. Oakland and Minnesota. Minnesota takes a sweep, kind of. One game got postponed, so they won 3 in a row there. We'll call it a sweep. Boston and New York. The Red Sox actually won this series. I was surprised by that, but they came, and it's a rivalry game, right? So they came out swinging it. Detroit and Houston. Houston ends up taking that series. Texas and Seattle. Seattle ends up sweeping the Rangers. I'm not going to say there's a coffin in the Rangers season, but nail in the coffin, I should say. But I mean, getting swept by first place Seattle Mariners while you could have gained some ground there. That's tough. But why don't you go over the National League?
Yeah, St. Louis ended up taking 2 of 3 from the Cubs. Washington sweeps Miami. Washington's been playing a lot better in the last couple weeks. The Mets sweep the Padres. That kind of shocked me. Milwaukee ended up taking 2 of 3 from Cincinnati. Pittsburgh took 2 of 3 from the Rockies at course. And why don't you go over the Interleague?
Yeah, before we go over that, I can't get over the hat you're wearing right now. It's just it's
Hey,
you look like you're going on a safari or
I'm
something,
on the
bro.
beach. I'm on the beach.
Interleague matchup. It is the White Sox versus the D-backs. The D-backs ended up taking 2 of 3. Tampa and Atlanta. Atlanta ends up taking 2 of 3 as well. Philly and Baltimore, really good series. Baltimore ends up winning the back 2 games of that series to take it. Kansas City and LA. LA does take it 2 of 3, but there's some bad news out of that camp. We'll get into that. And the Angels took 2 of 3 from San Francisco. Some ugly games in that series. The Angels had a game where they were up big on Friday. Giants tried to come back. Then the Giants on Sunday, they got up on top, and then the Angels tried to come back. So 2 ugly games in that series, but the Angels end up winning 2 of 3. That middle one was the deal breaker. Did you watch any baseball this weekend for the most part?
I watched a little bit of the Dodgers and Kansas City games. I was at the gym and it was on at the gym. Watched a little bit of that. Watched 2 of 3 for Toronto. Caught a little bit of the Yankees game yesterday. And caught a little bit of Cincinnati, Milwaukee. I was on TV here in Canada, so that was really weird for that series to be on Sportsnet. But yeah, no, overall pretty good week. I end up gaining 3 games on you, so up to 11. I go 10-5. Dylan goes 7-8. But yeah, there was some weird series in there. Like I didn't see Texas getting swept by Seattle. But yeah, let's go over this week's.
Yeah, before we do that, there were some close series too. Like that Cincinnati Milwaukee series was really good. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, let's get into it. In the American League, first up, we have the Red Sox heading into Toronto to take on the Jays. It'll be Nick Pivetta versus Yusei Kikuchi, Tanner Houck versus Chris Bassett, and Brian Bayo versus Kevin Gosman. I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Red Sox on this one. They're coming off 2 of 3 from the Yankees. The Jays also did win their last series against the Guards. But the Guardians did throw Carlos Carrasco and Ben Lively in those back 2 games.
Yeah.
So you missed Bybee, you missed McKenzie. So though they got those games handled, I think the Red Sox are coming off a little bit more impressive of a weekend. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Red Sox.
Yeah, it was tough news for the Jays. They lost Yimi Garcia to injury in the ninth inning, so that's a tough blow for them. But the Jays they've called up these kids, Horowitz and Schneider and Barger, and they've kind of breathed some life into a stagnant offense. And I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, they didn't face the best of starters on the last couple days, but they scored a lot of runs. So I'm gonna take the Jays here. We'll see what happens. We'll see if that offense can continue into this series against Boston. It's weird. We're almost in midway through June, and this is the first time they've seen the Red Sox, so should be interesting.
Yep. Next up, we have the Mariners taking on the Guards. It'll be Bryce Miller versus Tristan McKenzie, Brian Wu versus Tanner Bybee, and Luis Castillo versus Logan Allen. I am going to go ahead and go with Seattle in this series. They did just sweep Texas. Cleveland is the home team in this series, but like I said, I think the Mariners just momentum-wise coming into this in a little bit better position. Plus, I like their pitching a little bit better with Miller, Wu, and Castillo lining up. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with the M's.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the M's too. Seattle, obviously their pitching is what wins them games, but Cleveland, man, I don't think I've seen a hitter that can put the bat to the ball like Steven Kwan. He's batting 398. He had back-to-back four-hit games against the Jays. I was crazy to see he's almost hitting 400. Like that's we're in the middle of June and this guy's hitting 400. It's really impressive. He's awesome to watch. I'm gonna go Seattle though.
Alrighty. Next up, we have the O's heading into New York to take on the Yankees. It'll be Albert Suarez versus Nestor Cortez, Cade Povich versus to be determined, and Cole Irvin versus Luis Hill. Not the best pitching matchups in this series, especially with these two powerhouse teams in the National League East, or sorry, American League East.
Yeah.
But I am gonna go ahead and go with the Yankees. They are the home team in this. And Luis Hill has been lights out. With Nestor Cortez's track record and Luis Hill, who's been lights out lately, I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Yankees in this series. Plus, um, the Yankees are coming off of a series loss. It's hard to see imagining them losing two in a row. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with the Yanks.
Yeah, I'm gonna be interested to see if that to be determined in game two, maybe Garrett Cole. That would change my decision drastically, I think. But for now, I'm gonna go Baltimore. They're coming off an electric series win against the Phillies. Wild play there by Mullins, that slide in the 10th. They end up losing that game, but yeah, that was a really entertaining series to watch. Povich, this is his second start in the majors. I believe maybe his second or his third. I mean, so he made his debut in Toronto, but for now, I'm gonna go Baltimore here.
Alrighty. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Minnesota Twins. It'll be Aaron Savali versus Pablo Lopez, Taj Bradley versus Joe Ryan, and Zach Littell versus Simon Woods Richardson. I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Twins in this series. I do like their pitching better. I know I've said that a couple times already with these teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pablo Lopez, who hasn't had the greatest year, but he's still Pablo Lopez. And then Joe Ryan in that second game. Plus, Tampa just hasn't been playing good baseball. I think they're 3-7 over the last 10. So with that said, I'm gonna go with the Twins.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the Twins too, man. Royce Lewis just continues to mash home runs. If that guy can stay healthy, I mean, he might hit 50 bombs. Like he's such a good power hitter. Just it's all about health with that guy. But yeah, I'm with you on the pitching with the Twins. I'll go Minnesota.
Next up, we have the Houston Astros taking on the Chicago White Sox in Chicago. It'll be to be determined versus Jonathan Cannon, to be determined versus Garrett Crochet, and to be determined versus Chris Flexen. Obviously, Houston hasn't announced who they're starting yet, but even if they throw, I don't know, a position player, they might win this series. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That was mean. But I am gonna go ahead and take the Astros
Okay,
to win this
okay.
series.
You didn't go that far. The Astros, Verlander got scratched in that series, so that's something to keep an eye on for them. Probably that's why it's a lot of TBDs for this series. Yeah. I don't have a follow up to your comment there, but I'll go Houston.
And rounding out the American League, we got the Kansas City Royals taking on the Oakland A's. It'll be Alec Marsh versus Hogan Harris, Cole Reagans versus Luis Medina, and Seth Lugo versus Mitch Spence. I am going to go ahead and go with the Royals. We're talking about the last two series. They had to take on the Yankees and the Dodgers. They ended up losing both of those series, but they battled. There were some close battles in there. They might not be that caliber of team to beat those two, but they should be good enough to beat Oakland. They've been consistent. And then the A's, they showed some life early in the season, but lately it's been going pretty bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with Kansas City in this one. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, the Oakland started the season 19-19, and we're like maybe this isn't going to be as bad as we thought, and then it's getting kind of off the rails after that. You mentioned the two series has lost to those two teams. That's a good test for them. Like you learn something from playing those teams. Like those teams are supposed to be, World Series contenders. So it's a good measuring stick to see where you're at as an organization. They only lost the third game against the Dodgers 4-1 today. That series was there for the taking. So, yeah, they show that they can play with those teams, but obviously there's some room to go there. But I'll take KC here as well.
Looking at the National League, we have the San Diego Padres taking on the Phillies. It'll be Randy Vasquez versus Christopher Sanchez, Michael King versus Aaron Nola, and Matt Waldron versus Ranger Suarez. I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Phillies in this series. The Padres have just been too up and down for my liking. And then you have Aaron Nola and Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez has been one of the best pitchers in the National League, if not the entire MLB. So I am gonna go ahead and go with the Phillies. They are at the bank. I like them.
Yep, different team at the bank. We said that a few times during these videos, but yeah, I'm gonna go the Phillies here too. Coming off a series lost at Camden Yards, they're gonna be a little pissed off for sure.
Yep. Next up, we have the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Miami Marlins. It'll be Sonny Gray versus Braxton Garrett, Lance Lynn versus Roddery Munoz, and Kyle Gibson versus to be determined. Cardinals have been playing better baseball. They do have Sonny Gray going in the series. I also took Miami in back-to-back series. They probably could have won with the way their pitching was lining up. It was the Nationals and the Rockies or something like that.
Yeah.
So with that said, I am going to go ahead and go with St. Louis mainly because they one are a better team and two they've been playing pretty decent baseball of late. So I am going to go with the Cards.
You're not gonna triple down on the Marlins, eh? All right, all right.
Nah, not this time.
I'm gonna go
They'll
St.
probably end
Louis
up
too.
winning this series.
Yeah,
That's what's going to happen.
yeah, yeah. You take them and then they win. And then they lose. Sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna go St. Louis here too. I don't really know much about Roddy Munoz. Obviously, St. Louis has the more favorable pitching matchups in this one, but and they obviously got a better offense as well.
Next up, we have the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. It'll be Carson Spears versus Paul Skeens, Nick Lodolo versus Bailey Falter, and Hunter Green versus Mitch Keller. Seems like Paul Skeens pretty much been shoving against everybody he faces. He didn't get a pitch in Colorado this past weekend. But with that said, I am actually going to go with the Reds. I'm going to double down on them. I took them against Milwaukee, and it was a really good series. They've been playing better ball. Nick Lodolo and Hunter Green go in this series, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. Pittsburgh, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the only days they win are when Skeens or Jones
Jones.
pitch.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and go with Cincinnati in this series, though.
I'm gonna go Pittsburgh here. These two teams have been playing a lot lately, so they're definitely familiar with each other. Did you see um what's his name? De La Cruz score on a pickoff attempt? I've never seen that
Yeah.
before. Just lightning speed. He's electric to watch. Yeah, Skeens, you got Mitch Keller going there in that third game. I'll go Pittsburgh here, see what happens.
Next up, with the San Francisco Giants taking on the Chicago Cubs. It'll be Jordan Hicks versus Javier Assad, Logan Webb versus Justin Steele, and to be determined versus to be determined. Yeah, so I just took the Cubs to beat the Cardinals, and that backfired on me. I also took the Giants to beat the Angels, and that backfired on me. So with that said, I do like Jordan Hicks, how he's been pitching. We do get a matchup of aces between Webb and Steele, but if I'm gonna choose which ace I like better in that, I'm gonna take Logan Webb. So with that said, I am gonna go ahead and go with San Francisco, but I'm not very confident in this one. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the Cubs have been kind of spiraling lately. Maybe not spiraling, but just like just up and down, right? You take a look at the like they're sitting in fifth place in the division right now in the NL Central. Um Getting up to the deadline here right away. Um I wouldn't have had them behind Cincinnati and Pittsburgh at this point in the season. I don't think they would either. So um yeah, it's you got to get going if you're the Cardinals. Obviously the wild card route is pretty tight right now, but you got to start stringing some series wins together.
Yep. Next up, we have the D-backs versus the Washington Nationals. It'll be Slade Ciccone versus Jake Irvin, Brandon Pfaadt versus Patrick Corbin, and Ryan Nelson versus Mackenzie Gore. We saw some Nationals get into it. It was Nick Senzel and Mackenzie Gore getting after each other, and they end up winning that game 8-1. With that said, I am going to go ahead and go with Arizona. They're coming off back-to-back series wins. Granted, they were the Angels and the White Sox, but now they're playing Washington, who hasn't really been playing much better than those teams I just listed. So, with that said, I think the D-backs are starting to roll a little bit. It's a kind of soft spot in their schedule. I am going to go with the D-backs.
Corbin Carroll, man, I don't know what is going on with this guy. Like it's a complete 360 from where he was last year. Just watching him at the plate, he got injured yesterday's game, I believe it was. So not a good second season for him. I'm gonna go Washington. I took him the last 2 weeks. They've won the last 2 weeks for me. So I'll ride the hot hand while it's hot. So I'll go Washington here.
And rounding out the National League, we have the Dodgers taking on the Rockies. It is in Coors Field, if that means anything. It'll be James Paxton versus Cal Quantrill, Walker Buehler versus Austin Gomber, and Bobby Miller versus Ryan Feltner. Yeah, Dodgers losing Mookie Betts, losing Yamamoto. Um, Luckily, they have a guy named Shohei Ohtani, and they have another guy named Freddie Freeman. And outside of that, they have a lot more guys that are all-star caliber players. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, Rockies are what they are. I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Dodgers.
Yep, big blows. But we'll get into that injury details in another video here. But yeah, I'm gonna go the Dodgers here too. But you're definitely gonna need some guys to step up in the absence of those two. Those are two really big losses.
Jumping over to the Interleague series, we have the Detroit Tigers taking on the Atlanta Braves. It'll be Reese Olson versus Max Fried, Casey Mize versus Schwallenbach, and Tariq Skubal versus Reynaldo Lopez. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go with Atlanta. They haven't been playing the best of baseball of late, but they did just take a series against Tampa. Detroit, I mean, they're no slouch. They've been winning ball games here and there.
Mhm.
But Atlanta's just a much deeper and better team. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Braves.
Yeah, Tigers sitting 3 games below 500. I almost took him in this series to be honest. Reese Olson's been good. Tariq Skubal's been really good. But I like Atlanta's offense over Detroit as much as they've been struggling since the start of May. The track record, I'll go with them.
Next up, we have the Mets taking on the Texas Rangers. Both of these teams need wins. The Mets have been winning some games lately. It'll be David Peterson versus John Gray, Luis Severino versus Michael Lorenzen, and Shamanaya versus Andrew Heaney. The way Texas has been playing, I probably should go with the Mets, but it's the Mets, and every time I take them, they suck and they lose, and the Rangers still are the reigning World Series champs. John Gray, Michael Lorenzen, Heaney. I don't feel great about that, but I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Rangers.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Texas as well, even though the Mets have won either 8 of their last 10 and 5 games in a row. Um, Eventually Texas has got to get going here, right? I mean, it's kind of like Houston, right? It's they're kind of in the same spot, like 3 steps forward, 5 steps back type thing. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'll go Texas.
Next up, we have the Angels taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. It will be Carlos Rodriguez versus Jose Soriano, Tobias Myers versus Griffin Canning, and Freddie Peralta versus Tyler Anderson. I'm gonna go ahead and go with Milwaukee in this series, though the Angels have been playing better ball of late. The kids have, Neto's look good, O'Hoppy's look good.
Yep.
Sean Newell's even starting to hit for some power. Those guys look good, but the pitching staff is just, it still has been subpar. With that said, they gave up 13 runs today. Milwaukee just won a close series with Cincinnati, who's a better team, in my opinion, than the Angels. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Brewers in this series.
I'm gonna go with the Angels here. I like the Soriano matchup versus Carlos Rodriguez, and if Anderson can outpitch Peralta in that third game, I think they could win this series. Like you said, the kids have been playing better. But yeah, I'm banking on Tyler Anderson to continue pitching the way he has been all season long in this one. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go the Halos here.
Alrighty, that's gonna do it for this one. In review, I have Boston, Seattle, New York, Minnesota, Houston, Kansas City, Philly, St. Louis, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Arizona, LA, Atlanta, Texas, and Milwaukee. While Blake has Toronto, Seattle, Baltimore, Minnesota, Houston, Kansas City, Philly, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, Washington, LA, Atlanta, Texas, and LA. That's going to do it for this one. So we appreciate you guys for listening. This is a new channel, so every like, every comment, it means a lot to us, whether they're, a dislike, even that too. We can adjust our content, start working on it. But yeah, if you like this video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. As always, we appreciate you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Later.